Okay.
Test automation. So in test automation, we will decide what all the features that we need to
Features
automate.
execution.
So
Okay.
features that we are going to decide to automate. Okay. Next, 14th one.
Deliverables.
Deliverables. In deliverables, so we are going to decide what all the documents
What
that
type
we
of
need to,
the documents we need
at
to.
the end of the project, what all the documents that we need to submit to the customer. Okay. In the 15th is templates.
Templates.
So here in template section, we have a test plan document, right? Test plan template. What template we need to follow? That templates will be placed here. Test plan template, test case template, test scenario template. Okay, all the templates that we are in. Defect template, defect report template. Okay, test execution report template. So these all the templates that will be placed here. So we'll take this template and we'll prepare a test plan. We'll take this test template and we'll prepare a test cases. Okay. This is about test plan. So test plan, what is meant by test plan? Test plan is a document prepared to what all the activities that we are going to perform in the future. What all the activities that we are going to perform is to perform in future. Okay, for this particular project. Okay, this is about test plan. Did you all guys go through the document?
Yes.
Only one yes. Two. Only two people. Next one is, as I said yesterday, we are going to discuss about the defect life cycle. So this is part of STLC. Because in STLC, we'll have a defect reporting, right? One of the section that we have a defect reporting. So this we'll be discussing in here as a defect life cycle. In the defect life cycle, we have different phases. So first we'll get a requirement. Okay. Then we study or analyze the requirement. So while we are studying and analyzing and understanding and writing that, we will start writing the test cases. Identify all scenarios. So once we get the requirement, developers will start understanding the requirement and start developing the product, right? They'll start developing the product. Meanwhile, what we are going to do, we are going to study, analyze, identify all the scenarios, write test cases. So by the time they develop the product, we'll be ready with the test cases, scenarios, and we'll be clear about the requirement. Once the product is developed and deployed in QA, testing environment, then what we'll do, we'll start testing in QA environment, okay, by seeing the test cases that we have written. So we have, suppose let us assume that we have 50 test cases. We started to test it, each test case. First one, it is okay, it has passed. Second one, it has passed. Third one, it failed. So what we are going to do if it is failed, we'll call it as a defect or bug. What is meant by defect? What is meant by defect? If it is not working as expected, if it is not behaving as per the application's requirement, okay, that will call it as a defect. If it is not behaving as per the application requirement, then we'll call it as a defect. So if any one of the test case failed, then what we need to do? What is the procedure that we need to do? That is defect life cycle. Okay. So we have different phases. Once we find a defect, then we'll raise a defect. Okay, we'll raise a defect that will be in the new state. Okay, then it will be assigned. I'll explain you one by one. Okay, next it will be in open. Okay, then what happens next? What happens? Open. Next, it will be fixed. Next, retest. Can you see my screen until down? Okay.
No, sir.
You can't see the down. Okay. So after fixing, it will be retest. Then once it is fixed, once it is retested, it will be closed. Okay, this is the flow. These are the phases that we have. So if it is fixed, and we'll start retesting. If it is not working, then what happens? It will go back and assign. Okay, it will go back and reassign to the developer. Okay, if it is opened, then what happens? If it is assigned, then we have another different kinds of. So we have deferred. What is meant by deferred? What is meant by deferred? So rejected, deferred, and once assigned, it will be rejected or deferred. Okay, or duplicate. Okay, this is the cycle that we follow. So this is the defect life cycle. So when people asks you in interview question, then you need to draw and explain. If they ask you to draw the defect life cycle, then you need to draw this one and explain each and everything. What is new? So what happens in the new state? Once we find a defect, then we will send it to development team. We'll send an email saying that we have found a defect and we have raised it in the Jira. Okay, we have raised it in the Jira. So please have a look. Like that, we'll send an email, Jira number. So for every defect, whatever the defect that we raise it in the Jira, we'll give one number. So if defect number is Jira 111, like that. So we'll send an email to the developer. Once we send to the development team, so here development lead or developer, okay, any one of them. So sometimes development lead will first condition, development lead will look into the defect and will decide whether it is genuine or not. Okay, if it is a genuine defect, then he will assign to the developer who has worked on that one. Okay, so what if it will be in the new state when we raise a defect. Okay, once we send an email to the development team, then that will be assigned to any one of the developer who has worked on that particular task on that particular module. So that will be assigned once the development lead thinks that the defect is genuine. Okay, that is a real defect. If it is a real defect, then he will assign to the developer. Okay, particular developer. Once it is assigned, once the developer picks up the defect to fix it, then he will move to open state. Okay, if it is in open state, means that particular developer will be working on that particular defect. Once that is fixed, then he will move that to fixed. Okay, then he will move open to fixed state. Okay, then we'll start retesting it. We'll retest this. Okay, if it is working as expected, then the defect is fixed. So we're gonna close it. So we start retesting it. If it is not working as expected, again it is failing, then we'll go back and assign to the developer. Okay, then again the process will be the same. Once it is assigned, it will be open, then it will be fixed, then retest, close. So this cycle will be repeated. Okay, once we assign the defect, once the development lead checks the defect and he says that the defect is not genuine, then he will reject the defect. Okay, make sure that we are not supposed to get rejected. Okay, whatever the defects that we raise, we should make sure twice and raise a defect. Okay, if the defects are getting rejected from the developers, then that's not good to the tester. Okay, so that's why we should make sure that the defect is genuine, then only we should raise. So if it is rejected, then that is not good for the testers. Okay, be in mind, keep in mind. So if it is rejected, then what we are going to do, we need to discuss with the developer, saying that it is a genuine defect. We need to explain. Okay, deferred. So we have deferred means, so this defect will be not fixed. Okay, deferred. So we are not going to fix this defect. Okay, that is the case. Duplicate means if someone, so if we have 3 testers, that defect has been raised this tester already. Third tester already raised the defect. So later he raised, tester 1 has raised the same issue. So that time it will be duplicate. Okay. Any doubts? So I'll give examples for everything. Okay. So rejected. What happens? I have raised a defect. Okay. I tested in Chrome. Okay. I tested in Chrome. It is working fine. Okay. I tested in Firefox. So suppose it is a web application, then I need to perform testing in different browsers. Okay. I need to perform testing in different browsers. So I worked on Chrome, that is working fine. I worked on Firefox, it is working fine. Then I'll work on Internet Explorer. It is not working as expected. Okay, in Internet Explorer, it is not working as expected. Then what we are gonna do, we'll raise a defect saying that so and so functionality is not working. Then we'll assign the defect to the developer. But in that defect, we are not mentioning that which browser it is not working. Okay, we are not mentioning on which browser it is not working. So what the developer will do, we'll go to the application and we'll check it in Chrome, and he says that it is working fine. So it will straight away he will reject that is working. Okay, so that's why we need to clearly mention on which browser it is not working. So that time it will get rejected. So again we need to explain them that this is not working in Internet Explorer. So when we are raising a defect, we need to clearly mention on which browser it is not working, on which environment, whether it is in QA environment, whether it is in staging environment. Okay, those all the things we need to mention in the description of the defect. Okay, so this is one of the example that we may get rejected. Deferred means, so deferred, when it will be deferred. So we have a feature where we no need to develop. So suppose help feature, we no need to develop. Okay, no need to develop. It was not there in the requirement. So we have raised that help functionality. Help, when we click on the help, it is not giving the information. So we have raised a defect. Then they'll say that this defect is deferred. That is not in the requirement. Okay, that we are not gonna cover in the requirement, because in the test plan also we'll be writing, right, help will be not tested, right? So like that, those kind of defects will be deferred. Okay, duplicate, I already said, if any one of the tester is not, if already the same defect has been raised by any one of the tester, then that time we'll say that the defect will be duplicate. So that will be moved to duplicate state. Okay, any doubts?
No.
Okay, so this is about defect life cycle. Now I will tell you what
Will
are
it
the
be
things.
resolved after duplicate or not? If it gets in duplicate or in retesting?
No, that will be closed because we already have the defect raised, right, by the other
Okay.
tester. That will be in the open state.
Got it.
So tester 3 already raised a defect. This is the functionality. Suppose login username taking 13 characters, though it has to be taken 8 to 12. Okay, this defect has been raised by tester 3 already. Okay, because he will be working on compose mail tester 3. Okay, he mistakenly entered 13 digits instead of 12, 8 to 12. Instead of 8 to 12, he has mistakenly entered 13 characters username. Then he is not able to log in. He has to test the compose mail. If he has to test the compose mail, he has to log in, right, first. So mistakenly he has entered one character extra. So username didn't take in it. So he is not able to log in it. So he is not able to raise the compose mail. So he found the defect. So what he will do, he immediately raise the defect for this username. So now tester 1 is testing the login functionality. Okay, he starts testing it. He tests the valid one, invalid entering the username. That time he will find. So first he already found, and he has found, so immediately he has raised the defect that this is taking more than 12 characters. Okay, then now once he finds the defect, he don't know, because he don't think that he will be raising the defect of login functionality. So he has raised the defect. Tester 1 has raised the defect now that invalid username is taking. So this already raised. So this one he is raising later. So this will be duplicate. So this defect, whatever the defect that he is raising, will be closed. So this will be there in the system.
Okay, got it.
So this is about defect life cycle. So here we need to know. So let us assume that we are raising one defect in Jira. So in Jira, we'll suppose this is the Jira. Okay, I'll show you tomorrow. So here we'll be having one button create. Okay, this defect life cycle, right? Whatever the flow I told you, that flow will be depending on the Scrum Master. So he will decide what flow it should be there, or the team or the company will follow same defect life cycle. So each company will follow different phases. Okay, so no need to worry about that. So whatever the defect flow that I have shown, whatever the phases that I have shown, just explain that in my company we are following these are the phases that we follow. Okay, so no need to worry about different phases. Different companies will follow different flows. Okay, so create button will be there. We'll click on create. it will give the option to select. Okay, whether it is a defect, so we'll be having here task. So task, something will be there. So here we'll be having options whether we are creating a new task, whether we are creating a defect, whether we are creating a epic, whether we are creating different. So we'll be having different options. Here we'll select defect. Okay. Once it is defect, then we'll give the name of the defect. So what exactly it's not working? So entering invalid username, we are able to log in. So entering the invalid username, we are able to log in the functionality. We are able to login. So this is the description of the defect. Okay. Then we'll be having a severity or priority. What is the severity of the defect? Severity means, what is meant by severity? Severity means if it is blocking to test, severity will be high. If we are not able to proceed our testing, then for that functionality, if you are raising a defect, severity will be high. If we are not able to log in, then we can't able to test it compose mail, we can't test sent items, we can't test delete items because we are not able to log in. So then that time severity will be high. Okay. Priority also high. Why? Priority depends on how important that is for us to fix it, how fast needs to be fixed. Okay, that is priority. Severity means functionality wise, priority means how fast it has to be fixed. So severity comes to the functionality side, priority comes to the how fast it has to be fixed. Okay, so these are the two difference. High means high or critical or major, everyone will follow different. If it is a high, then that is blocking our testing, so it has to be fixed. Priority also will be high. So priority high means it has to be fixed as soon as possible. So then only we can proceed our testing. We are blocked now because the login functionality itself not working. So we need to select severity is high, priority is high. Then we are gonna create. Click on create, it will create a ticket and will give the ID, defect ID. So it will be given a defect ID. Okay. So here we'll be having one more thing. We'll be having a description. Okay, description. In the description, we need to explain exactly what's happening. Okay. So I'll explain you the description part now, how to raise the description part. So in the description part, so this is the description. First one, what we need to do, steps to reproduce. Steps to reproduce. What is meant by steps to reproduce? Steps to reproduce. Anyone having any idea on this? So how we are going to reproduce the defect? How we are gonna reproduce the defect means what he needs to test so that that defect will be found. What all the details that he has to enter to reproduce the defect. To reproduce means how to. So I found the defect. I need to check whether the defect is genuine or not. So to check that one, I need to follow. So whatever the steps as a tester I followed, he has to follow the same steps to find the defect, right? So that is steps to reproduce. So steps to reproduce, what we are going to do, enter username first. Okay, first one, launch the URL, gmail.com. Second, enter the username. Okay, we need to give the username. Suppose Raja 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13. Okay, third one, enter the password. So password Raja 1 2 3. Fourth one, click on login. Okay, these are the steps to reproduce. So what is expected result? We need to write expected result. What is the expected result? We should be able to log into the, we should be able to enter the username. So what is the here entering the username? 13 characters. Okay, by entering the 13 characters, still because it is 8 to 12 characters, but we are entering 13 characters, still it is logging into the page. So what should be the expected result here? What will be the expected result?
It should be in between 8 to 12.
Yeah, that is correct. So what we are going to write here, so we should not be allowed to log in Gmail, because we have entered 13 characters, which should be in the range of 8 to 12. Okay, so this is the expected result. But what is the actual result? We need to write the actual result. Actual result means what exactly the functionality is now working. So what happens? You're able to log in. This is the actual result. So this way we need to write it in the description. So we need to write the steps how to reproduce the defect, and what is the expected result, and what is the actual result. Okay, and we can also attach the screenshots. What exactly happening? Okay, we need to attach the screenshots for this video. So by seeing this, he can able to understand. So here it is a test environment, UA, browser, Chrome, if it is web application. Okay, browser version 101. Okay, OS Windows 10. Like this, we need to mention all the details in the description. Understood? So we need to write steps to reproduce is very important. So how to reproduce the defect? So whatever the steps that we follow to reproduce the defect, that steps needs to be written here, so that developer will do the same thing. He's going to enter same thing. He's going to enter the same username. He's going to enter the same password, and he's going to click on login. Okay, that time he can able to reproduce the defect by seeing these steps. Once he reproduces, then he confirms that there is a defect. Then he will fix the defect. Okay, once it is fixed, then we are going to come and we're going to do the same steps, whatever we have written here in the steps to reproduce, same username, same password, and click on login. Then we should get this one. We are expecting this result. We should not able to log into the application because it should be in between 8 to 12 characters. So this is where we are going to raise a defect in the Jira. So how to raise a defect? and how to write the test cases, and those are the things practically I'll be showing you tomorrow. Okay, Jira, how the Jira will be looking. So all the things that I'll be showing tomorrow, and I'll give a template for the test case template, test scenarios template, and what all the templates we require, test plan template. So I'll provide tomorrow test plan template. Okay, test scenarios template, test case template. Okay, defect reports template. Okay, test execution report template, test execution report template. What all the reports we have? Defect report template, test execution report template. So these are the reports that we will be discussing tomorrow, templates that we are going to discuss about tomorrow. And I'll give one application, okay, where you people has to, I'll give one application where in that application we'll be having different modules. So I'll give each and everyone, I'll give one module. So you people have to write, I'll give 15 minutes time. In 15 minutes time, you people has to write the test cases. Whatever you think, those test cases needs to be written. So before I give this task, I'll explain you how I'm going to write the test cases for one of the module. Okay, by using this test case template. Okay, first you need to write test scenarios for that module, whatever the module that I'll give for you guys. Then after writing the test scenarios, you need to write the test cases by using the templates that I have provided to you. So by end of the day, I'll provide all these templates to you guys. So just go through those templates, what all the things that required. Okay, I'll provide all the templates by end of the day. Then I'll take one module, I'll write test scenarios, I'll write test cases. Okay, then I'll send the test execution report. How I'm going to send test execution report to the test lead. And if I have raised any defects, then I'm going to send defect execution report. These are all the things that I'll do for one module. Okay, then I'll give an exercise to do one module for each of you guys. So you need to do the same thing. So I'll give 15-20 minutes to write the test cases for that particular module. Then you need to submit. Okay, that part I'll be teaching tomorrow. So up to now, have we understood?
Yes.
Only Usha. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So see, if you can't read, if you can't study, or if you can't read the documentation, if you can't follow up my classes, because I'm taking a lot of efforts to discuss, to explain, because I never used to wake up before 9:30, but now I'm getting up around 7 o'clock. Okay, I'm losing my 2 hours sleep. So I'm spending a lot of time. Please read. If you don't spend time on this, then it's very difficult to get the job. Okay, so yesterday I have told you about the testing types in the test plan, right? So we need to discuss those testing types which are not covered. So the important one is regression testing. Very important. Definitely you will be getting question on this. Regression testing. What is meant by regression testing? So first, let us assume that we have a module A. We have 3 modules, A, B, and C. These are the 3 modules that developers will develop one after the other. Okay, we have A module. It was developed and released to us. Once it is released, we start our testing. What testing we do here? What testing we'll do for this module? What testing type? Functional, integration, system. Which one?
First one is
Functional.
functional testing.
Functional or component. So we'll start functional testing. We'll complete this one. We have tested everything. Okay. We don't have any defects. Then we'll get one more module. By the time we finish this one, developers will develop B and they'll give it to us. Okay, what you're gonna do here? Once we get a B module, what you're gonna do? To start testing this one. Okay, we'll start testing this one. Then we are gonna
A
test
to B.
A to B
B to A.
integration testing. A to B or B to A will be doing the integration testing between A and B. Once we do integration testing, okay, once we complete our integration testing, we need to test A.
Check.
We need to test A. Why we need to test A? Why we need to test A? Anyone?
Means if any defects, by checking the integration testing, any defects that happened in AR.
Okay, you are almost near. Once B is developed, because of the developing B, this A might be affected. This A functionality might be affected because of B development. Okay, so that's why we need to test A. This we'll call it as a regression testing. So what is the definition now? To make sure that the application, to make sure that the older module was not disturbed due to the development of new module. Okay. Due to the development of new module, A module should not be disturbed. That's why we are doing regression testing. That we'll call it as a regression testing. Okay. I got it. This is one case. This is one case. Okay. Now, second case. We will do regression testing in two cases. If it is a new module, and because of developing the new module, A module might be disturbed and A module might be disturbed and it is not working as expected. So that's why we do regression testing. We are making sure that A module was not disturbed because of developing B module. That we'll call it as a regression testing. Okay. This is for new modules. Suppose in the second case, we have A module. We have tested A module. Then we found one defect. We found one defect. Okay, what we'll tell them? We'll send the defect to the developers. Okay, what the developers will do? Meanwhile, while we are testing, developers will be developing B module, right? So we raise a defect. That defect will be fixed in along with the B module. So whatever the defect that we have raised here, that will be fixed along with the B, and they'll be delivering B along with the defect, along with the defect that we have raised for A. So what we are going to do? This defect will be tested first. Then we are going to test B. Okay, we are going to test the integration between A and B. Then because of the defect, because of this defect fixing, any other functionality of A might be disturbed. By fixing this defect which we found in A, that might be affecting the other functionalities of A. So to make sure that the other functionalities are not disturbed, we are testing. We will call it as a regression testing. Because of fixing this defect, the other modules of A should not be disturbed. So to make sure that we are doing our regression testing, that we'll call it as a regression testing. Have you got it?
Yes.
fixing defect might cause the other functionalities of A. Okay, that's why we'll do a regression testing. That we'll call it. So same definition. Definition will be same. So what we told here, because of developing the new module, the old module should not be disturbed. So we are making sure that the old module was not disturbed. That we'll call it as a regression testing. Because of fixing the defect in A, that should not affect the other functionalities of A. To make sure that the other functionalities are not affected, that we'll call it as a regression testing. Okay, these are the two cases that we have a regression testing. Have you got it?
Yes.
To make sure that the older functionality was not disturbed due to the development of new module, that we'll call it as a regression testing. To make sure that the defect fix is not disturbed the other functionalities of the module, that we'll call it as a regression testing. So two definitions. Just here defect, we are taking the defect. Here we are taking the new module. That's the only difference. Okay. This we'll call it as a regression testing. This is very important. Very important. Regression testing is very important. How functional testing and system testing, integration testing are important. Regression testing is also very important. So all the regression test cases will be taken into automation. Okay, all the regression test cases will be taken into automation. Okay, so all the regression test cases will develop automation. Any doubts? So, okay, one more, unit regression testing. Unit regression testing. So when it comes, Alexa, stop. Alexa, stop. Oh, okay. Unit regression testing. When we do unit regression testing, so we found a defect in A module. Okay, we found a defect in A module. That defect has been fixed by the developers along with B, and it has been released to us to test it. Once we got the release from the developers, what we are going to do, we are going to retest the defect. Retest the defect and check whether it is working or not. Only retesting the defect, that we'll call it as a unit regression testing. Okay, retesting the defect that has been fixed along with B, that we'll call it as a unit regression testing. So we are not checking whether the other functionalities are being disturbed or not. Just we are retesting that particular defect. That testing we'll call it as a unit regression testing. Okay, just checking whether the defect has been fixed or not. We are not bothered about the other functionalities of A are working or not. To check other functionalities are working or not, that we'll call it as a regression testing. Have you got it?
Yes.
Okay. Sunita Garu, you are silent today. Okay, this is about regression testing. What is meant by retesting? What is meant by retesting? So this itself will tell us. So if we found any defect, then we need to retest the defect. Okay. What is meant by regression and what is the difference between regression and retesting? This is important question. Okay. What is the difference between regression and retesting? In retesting, just we are gonna check whether that defect has been fixed or not. Okay, that we'll call it as a retesting. Due to fixing this defect, the other modules might be got affected. Due to fixing this defect, the other modules might be got disturbed. So that's why. So to make sure that the other modules are working as expected, we'll call it as regression testing. So this is the difference: unit regression testing or unit regression testing or retesting. Unit regression testing or retesting. Okay. So retesting means just checking whether the defect, whatever the defect that developer has been fixed, is working as expected. Regression means we are making sure that the other modules of other functionalities of A was not disturbed due to fixing of this defect. We are making sure to check whether all the modules are working correctly or not after fixing this defect. That we'll call it as a regression testing. Okay, regression and retesting. Hope you understood. Now we need to know about smoke test. Smoke test. What is meant by smoke test? Smoke test. When we are gonna do smoke test. So smoke test is the one we'll do at the beginning of our testing. At the beginning of our testing. So smoke test is to make sure main functionality is working or not. To make sure that the main functionality is working or not. So main functionality, how we are going to decide whether it is a important functionality or not. So if you take a login, if you take a login, so if it is not working, then we can't able to proceed any other testings. So this is the one. So just we'll make sure that the main functionality of the application is working properly. So we no need to bother about negative testing here. Just we are checking whether the main functionality of the application is working or not. So what we are going to check here? We are going to check with valid credentials. Okay, we are going to check with valid credentials. If it is working with valid credentials, the login functionality, then we are sure that we can able to log into the Gmail application. Then we can able to check compose mail, sent items, and drafts. Okay, if main functionality itself is not working, then no point of going for further doing testing, right? If it is not working, then we can't proceed our testing. So that's why we are making sure that the basic functionality of the application is working or not. Basic functionality of the application is working or not. So that we'll call it as a smoke test. In the smoke test, we'll check whether the basic functionality of the application is working or not. Okay, basic functionality. If that basic functionality itself is not working, then no point of taking that build for testing. Okay, that we'll call it as a smoke test. We got it? To make sure that the basic functionality of the application is working. Okay, so suppose here, as I said, login functionality is the basic functionality. If that is not working, then we are not able to proceed our testing further. So that time, so those are the test cases that will take it into smoke test. Basic functionalities and important functionalities, which blocks the testing. So those kind of test cases that we'll take into consider as a smoke test cases. Okay, that is smoke test. What is meant by sanity test? What is meant by sanity test? What is meant by smoke test? What is meant by sanity test? Smoke test we already know now. Sanity test. What is definitely they are going to ask you the difference between the smoke test and the sanity test. So definitely they are going to ask you what is the difference between smoke test and sanity test. So smoke test, we are testing the basic functionality, whether the basic functionality is working or not. In the sanity test, the same basic functionality will be tested thoroughly. thoroughly. So the same way what we did the component testing, right? Component testing, we're going to test it thoroughly, right? So in the component testing, we are testing the component thoroughly against the requirement, but whole component we are testing. But here in sanity test, basic functionality, we are testing it thoroughly. So if you take it a login, as the login is the basic functionality of the application, so that will be tested thoroughly against the requirement. So each and every field will be tested thoroughly in the sanity testing. So that's the difference between smoke test and sanity test. Smoke test, we are testing whether the basic functionality is working with the valid credentials. That we'll call it as a smoke test. And sanity test, we are checking the basic functionality thoroughly, whether it is working as expected. That is the difference between smoke test and sanity test. Any doubt?
Is there any other way that we can differ between sanity and smoke?
Any other way I need to explain? Okay.
Like sanity is going as per the requirement, and smoke test is not going as per the requirement. It's just test.
No. It is also going through the requirement because valid credentials, right?
Yeah.
We need to test. So requirement for login functionality, enter the valid username, enter the valid password, enter the click on login. So this is also in the requirement. We'll be writing one test case for valid credentials, right? So we are checking whether the build is accepted, whether we can take the build for testing. That testing we'll call it as a smoke test. Checking the build, whether it is acceptable for testing. If the basic functionality of the application is only not working, then no point of taking that build for testing. Okay, if the build is deployed, what is meant by build? So whatever the code that they have been developed by the developers, that will be in the jar file, that will be deployed into the environment. This jar file, whatever the code they have developed, that will be in the jar file. That will call it as a build. So this build will be deployed into the QA environment. If this build is not properly installed, into the QA environment, then so we are going to check whether this build is installed properly or not. Then if that is not installed, then we'll send it back that the build is not installed properly, so it is not ready for testing. So that is blocking. So that the installation checking whether the build is installed properly or not, we'll call it as a smoke test. This is one of the example.
Okay.
Okay. So once the build is deployed, then we're going to check any one of the basic functionality thoroughly against the requirement. So if any one of the, I'll give examples tomorrow. Okay, I need to check. So next one is exploratory testing. Exploratory testing. What do we mean by exploratory testing? We do exploratory testing when there is no requirement. When there is no requirement, we don't have any requirement. They have developed an application and they have given to us to test it. This is the application. They asked us to test the application without giving any requirement. So we don't have any requirement. The application has been developed and given to us to test it. What we are going to do in the exploratory testing, then we are going to check all the application. We'll understand the requirement, what exactly happening in the application. Then based on that understanding, we'll test it. That we'll call it as a exploratory testing. Exploratory, we are exploring the application first, then we are testing it. To understand the functionality of the application, we need to explore first. So we go through the application, we go through all the functionalities that it is developed, then understand the application, then we'll start testing. That we'll call it as a exploratory testing. So in the exploratory testing, we don't have the requirement. We directly get the application. So once the application is there with us, then what we do, first we explore the application. Okay? Explore the application based on our understanding. Then we'll test it. That we'll call it as a exploratory testing. Okay. Any doubts?
No.
Sorry, Nikunj?
No.
Okay. Okay. This is about, we need to discuss about ad hoc testing. What is meant by ad hoc testing? Anyone? So we have the requirement. We already tested everything. We got some time to test. We got some time. So testing has to be finished by 30th of September. 30th of September, our testing has to be finished. Okay, but we finished our testing by 29th. We have one more day left. Okay, what we are gonna do? Just we are gonna randomly we're gonna check the application. So we don't have test cases. Whatever. So we random checking, ad hoc or random checking. Random checking means so we are not bothered about the test cases which we have written out of box. Whatever. So out of box, we are thinking out of box here. So we have written 400 test cases. Okay, 400 are working as expected. Other than these 400, if you think that we need to test more other test cases, I mean other than the 400 test cases, we got an idea to test the other way around, other than these 400. Then that testing we'll call it as ad hoc testing. So if you take an example, if any user, what will be the user will do? So we'll think as a end user and check. Suppose our functionality is first launch the browser, enter credentials, login. Okay, this is there in our requirement. We already covered the test cases for this. Then once we log in, okay, what I'm gonna do, I'm pressing the back arrow button of the browser. This is not covered in our test cases. Okay, let us assume that this was not covered in our test cases. So you got a doubt whether if I click back after logging into the application, whether it is logging out or not. Okay, and what I'll do, I'll log in. Okay, I'll check whether it is logged out or not. So once we go back, it has to be logged out. Once we click on next forward button, it should not be logged in again. Okay, we log in into the application, then I'm pressing back arrow button. It has to be logged out. Okay, after logging out, if you press the right arrow button on the browser, it should not log in because we didn't log out, right? Just we press the back arrow button and it has to be logged out. That is one of the functionalities. We'll check randomly whether it is working or not. But that test case is not covered in this 400. So that we'll call it as a ad hoc testing. So just we are thinking out of box and doing our testing. That we'll call it as a ad hoc testing. So one more example, if we say I have logged in to the application. Okay, I have logged into the application. I have taken the URL, whatever the URL that after logging in, I'll keep it somewhere. Okay, I'll log out of this application. Okay, I'll take this URL. I'll open the new browser. Okay, I'll paste this URL and enter and check whether we can able to log in. whether it is logging in, because we already logged out here. Now I'm taking the URL which when I logged in, I'm trying to log in with the URL which I have stored it. So it should not log in. Should not log in. Because this I'm doing it, though I don't have the test cases for this in this particular project, but these scenarios I already covered in one of the my previous project. I know about these test cases that we have covered there in the previous project. So I have idea how it should behave. Okay. So based on our previous experience, okay, based on our knowledge, we'll do some experiments on our application once we complete our testing, and if you have any time. That testing we'll call it as a ad hoc testing. I got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is about any testing types that I have missed. Do I miss any testing types? Okay, let me know. If I have missed anything, I'll cover it tomorrow. This is about today's class. Okay. I'll send the notes. Please read. If you don't read, then I can't help anything. So I'm trying my best. That's next step is you need to prepare. So just attending classes and coming, going, then no point. Okay. So because we're almost done with our manual testing. So only the practical part that we have, that will be covering tomorrow and after tomorrow. So from next week, so tomorrow, I said tomorrow we are going to take templates. We're going to write test cases. We're going to write test scenarios, and I'll ask everyone to write for one module, test cases, test scenarios. Okay. And after tomorrow, I'm going to show Jira if possible tomorrow, else otherwise after tomorrow, I'm going to show the Jira, how it will look, how we are going to raise the defect, how we are going to raise the task, what is meant by epic. So I'm going to discuss more about agile methodology that we are using in Jira practically. Okay, these 2 days. Then from next week, I'll be teaching Java from Monday. So everyone has to be logged into the laptop or desktop, because we need a desktop or laptop to work on Java. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow. Bye.
Thank you.